All right, let's go ahead and get started. So again, thank you for joining us, everyone. My name is Kyle Shagnon. I'm the marketing manager here at OpFocus. We're excited to host our first ever AMA around integrating your SaaS platform with Salesforce. Many of you did submit questions when you registered, and we're very appreciative of that. But if you do have additional questions or something comes up, feel free to submit them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Jason will be answering as many questions as we do have time for, and this session will be recorded, and a copy will be made available to you in a follow-up email. So with that out of the way, I'd like to just go ahead and introduce our expert today, Jason Curry. He is the Director of Development here at OpFocus. He holds over a dozen Salesforce certifications. I wasn't able to fit all of them on the screen. Some of them include application and system architect and platform developer too. He has over 10 years of Salesforce architect experience and leads the development team here at OpFocus. Our development team as a whole has completed dozens of projects ranging from integrating new additions to your tech stack to a complete custom development project. And they really do understand the importance of getting to know the core of what your team is trying to do to really build functionality that will meet those needs. So with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Jason to talk a little bit about some of the work that we've done with some of our clients.
Hello, everyone. Jason Curry here, Director of Development at OpFocus. And over the years I've been here, the 3.5 years, we've done a lot of different projects. A couple of them have been with Predictive Index, and I see a couple people are on from PI. And we've done a lot of work over the last several years with them and currently doing some work. RainFocus is also someone we've been working with for a couple of years and continue to work with a lot of our customers for multiple years at a time. Back to you, Kyle.
All right, I'll quickly run through how to ask a question at one of our AMAs here. So when you do ask a question, I'll go ahead and unmute you so you're able to explain your question to Jason. Please state your name, your role, the number of users that you have with your Salesforce instance, and then take a minute or so to ask your question and elaborate on your situation. Jason will take a couple of minutes to answer your question. We'll try to keep that to 5 to 8 minutes per question, so we're able to answer as many as possible. So with that being said, I'll pass things over to you, Jason, to start taking questions.
Yeah, thank you. One second here. So while we're waiting for some questions to come in, I'll kind of jump into some of the questions we posted on our landing page. First one, what are some of the common use cases for integrating the core platform with Salesforce? Really, that depends on your situation. Are you trying to do this for your users internally? Are you trying to bring all of that data into Salesforce so they don't have to go to multiple systems and logging in? It's a great use case for that. Some of the tools we might use for doing that might just be like a simple ETL tool, like Boomi or MuleSoft or Jitterbit. Those tend to be some of the more common ones. However, that's not the only option. You also have options where maybe some of your products have app exchange packages that are available for them, or maybe they're just the package that installs into Salesforce directly. We also have the ability to use custom API development as well. So with that, if you have an API layer in your backend system, we can integrate with that directly using like a REST or SOAP and bring that data in. It really depends on what kind of options you have available to you. By doing an integration, what we're trying to typically do is we're trying to bring all that information to your users, whether that's your internal users, your customer support reps, your sales, or whatever, trying to make that information very available to them on one screen so you don't have to go clicking around for it. As you may know, Salesforce has a lot of different reporting options and different capabilities to make that information very visible, especially with Lightning interfaces that we have today. Some of the other options, especially like if you want to bring in your customers into Salesforce as well, you have the option of making a community, allowing them to come in and do self-service type functions with your platform. They might even be able to access different features within your platform through Salesforce community. So there's a lot of options around that you can look into. One common question might be is, do we have to port our Salesforce, our entire platform to Salesforce? And the answer to that is no. You don't have to like port that or actually like copy all the code over into Salesforce and do it and reinvent the wheel essentially. You might have options where you can have like an embedded forms that go out to your web pages in Salesforce and shows the detailed data. So if you have like a URL capability within your forms where you can put in like identifiers into your system, we can direct to that. And then through like a single sign-on, we can also authenticate the users so they're not relogging in. So within Salesforce, they can either open up another page right to your website or even embed that information as an iframe inside of your website. Some of the other options with that also is you might want to bring in some of that data into Salesforce so you can make that data actionable. That's where, like, again, any ETL tool or an API might be able to bring that data in. Salesforce also has some other options with Salesforce Connect that allows you to directly link to that data in your databases. And so it appears like that data is in Salesforce, but in actuality it isn't. It's just being queried at the time of that's needed. And what's nice about Salesforce Connect is that data is also available for reporting as well. But that's only going to be available for your internal Salesforce org. It's not going to be available like if you wanted to make like an app exchange package and make that kind of data through Salesforce Connect available to your customers' Salesforce org. That won't be an option for that. Another question. How can we automate how can we automate initial license provisioning and ongoing license management? A lot of times with single sign-on, we have the ability to do just-in-time provisioning. So when the users log in, the identity provider will send the pertinent information to Salesforce, like their credentials, username, email. You can also oftentimes specify some additional data if you have it available that you can send, so that we can determine what kind of like a profile or user type that they would be in the system. And through some little back-end coding, we can automatically create that user in Salesforce or even in another system too if you need us to, and make that user so that they can log in. That's really simple to do. What are some of the pitfalls to avoid when building a two-way integration with my core platform and Salesforce? Some of the pitfalls might be the amount of data that you're looking to do, especially on a daily basis. If you have a large amount of users accessing the system at a given time, that can cause a problem with Salesforce, mostly because we have what's called a REST API limit, or an API limit call, so that your Salesforce is licensed for X number of API calls that it can make in a given day, and that's based on the version of Salesforce platform you have, the number of licenses you have, and they can also be bought up to be a higher level, but you have to keep that as a condition. Also, if you're not doing like a real-time two-way integration, you have to worry about collisions, data that's been updated in both sites. How are you going to handle that information? So the longer the time between the syncs, if you're doing a backend like a ETL solution, if it's like only doing it at night, you might have to wait for multiple. You might have to do that more frequently, and otherwise it will cause collision problems, and you have to have a way to resolve those as well. Is there data I should only keep in the SaaS platform to prevent cluttering Salesforce? That kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the Salesforce Connect option. It does have the ability so you can keep the data in your SaaS platform, but still access it in Salesforce. But with Salesforce, you do have to be worried about your data usage. If you go into like customer information, you can see what % of data you're currently using. And again, that limit is based upon, again, your platform and the number of licensed users you have, and you can buy that up as well. But if you're talking about 2-3 million and multiple millions of records of data, that's where you will probably be bumping into those limits. If you're just talking about it only like a few tens of thousands, it's probably not an issue. Some of the examples of data that you want to keep in your SaaS platform and not in Salesforce. Some of that might be like personal information data that's very secure, especially like credit card information if you have such. That's stuff we don't want to keep in Salesforce unless you have like a shield involved that allows you to secure that data to proper encryption. So that's kind of data you definitely don't want to bring in there. A lot of our customers, they don't want to bring in like all the detailed data of their invoice data because it might be too much. So they just bring in like the invoice number, and just the general amounts as well. Again, they're just trying to limit the amount of data that they're storing in Salesforce to keep their data storage costs down. Ken Richards has a question. Kyle, do you want to let him ask it?
Of course. Ken, you should be able to ask your question.
So in our platform, we have some time series data knowing how a site has grown in engagement over time. And we would like to let our Salesforce users see that without having to use another tool to kind of keep everything together. Do you have any suggestions for how to embed that kind of data, or at least a visualization into Salesforce?
Do you already have a visualization built in your platform?
Very rudimentary, and it's something we'd like to expand. And as we expand that, we'd like to make sure it's compatible with, it's something we can plug into Salesforce.
Okay. A couple options I can think of off the top of my head would be, you can, if you have an API layer, we can call in, grab that data and bring it in at the time that the user goes to view it and show it in Salesforce. Optionally, if your platform allows us to put some kind of identifier information in the URL where we can specify, so we can basically just forward off to that page, and then through single sign-on, be able to authenticate them automatically. You would be able to then view that data as well. And then, of course, if you have the option of like an ETL tool, that might be to bring that data into Salesforce. It could be used that way as well. So those are the typical scenarios that you're going to have for that kind of solution.
Thank you.
Jason Lewis has a question, Kyle.
All right.
Hey, Jason. Good to talk to you again.
Yes, been a while.
Yeah, appreciate all the help in the past. One of the projects we were looking to start up, at least scoping and try to understand, was designing a self-service portal for our clients. Can you just help maybe identify some of the typical integration points of a self-service portal that we should be considering so we can try to understand the scope and complexity of the project?
Sure. A lot of that depends on what you want to allow the users to do. I know in your case, you probably having some like a material that you want them to buy, possibly opening up like a support cases. But really depends on what features of that self-service portal you want. If you want to like user management, yeah, it just really depends on that. So a typical self-service portal, you can spin up one that's fairly simple and easy right out of the box with Salesforce, and we can implement basic branding with that as well. Or you can go another way where if you have it totally completely branded so it looks just like your websites. The difference in effort between those two can be substantial. The out-of-the-box template, of course, you can get that up and going inside of a few days or a week. A completely custom one, you're talking about a major project. Then depending on what you have for back-end processes that you're working on, if it's like license provisioning or something, what kind of API layer do you have? What's the process of working through that?
Oh, that's great. Thank you. It's some good high level, some of the things I wouldn't have picked up on in terms of like, allowing purchases and provisioning and user management through the portal. So
Yeah,
thanks. I appreciate it.
you're welcome. Some of the other questions. Some of the other common questions, like how long does it take to make an integration? And I was kind of hitting on that with Jason Lewis's question. It really depends, again, on the number of features you want to involve. Do you have like an MVP type of scenario that you can limit the number of features you're implementing initially? A lot of times you're going to create like a community maybe for that. And is that community, is it going to be fully branded for your site, or do you just need something just to get the job done? Those are the kind of questions. Fully branded, depending on what kind of features you want on the website. If you want custom menuing or something, that can really extend out the life of the project. Most projects that I've seen out there, they typically range in the neighborhood of like your 2 to 3 month implementation spans. And it just, we also have some projects that have gone on for better part of a year. It just depends.
Awesome. Well, a lot of folks on here have submitted questions, but I see some of you on the call have not submitted a question, and I'm sure you're here and have something you'd like an answer to. So feel free to submit them. I see Mike and Christian. Any questions you have at all, feel free to post them below, and we'd be happy to get to them.
Ken has another question.
All right.
I have many questions. I don't want to hog the thing here. So I'm curious about how far most companies go with their integrations. So for example, if we have a new customer we're onboarding, do companies typically like build that provisioning process into Salesforce and then have it called back into the SaaS platform? Or do they kind of have a separate tool to manage the SaaS platform and they're really just using Salesforce for the sales process? I'd just love to hear the kind of the range of different solutions people put into place.
I've seen it done both ways, where their platform is their single source of truth, so they want all the provisioning done there. However, they want Salesforce to, when it creates its user, to also notify the platform. We've done that in a couple different ways through the single sign-on process with just-in-time provisioning, and then through that we can also relay the request to the SaaS platform. Other companies, and it seems actually far more frequent than the other way, they're using Salesforce as the main way to generate or to do the provisioning for their users, both in Salesforce and in the platform. I've seen it done a lot, especially with like the Azure platforms that we've been doing that. We've been building the community and then allowing customers to come into the community, sign up there, and that generates their everything for them at that point. Is there any other follow-up to that, Ken? Sounds like you might have had some more.
Yeah, I think the follow-up would be if we're evaluating technologies to do the provisioning within Salesforce, I know we can like write a trigger, have it call our own REST API. You might be able to use something like Salesforce Connect. I'm not real clear. But what are like the top 3 options I should evaluate if we're investigating provisioning within Salesforce?
Salesforce Connect would not be a good one for that. But really it's going to, most of the provisioning is going to be probably just the, within Salesforce using like a trigger, like you said. Some other options might be, if you use SOAP instead of REST, there's some options that you don't have to do any coding. You can just send the SOAP call out via the outbound messaging, and that will just trigger through our workflow process automatically. Another option would be through the single sign-on provider itself. What identity provider are you using? And you might be able to configure that up to forward the request to add it to your SaaS platform through Salesforce if you needed to. But yeah, the single sign-on typically is probably the most common place to do it.
So it's kind of you embed a frame and we pop our application into a frame and single sign on so that it seems like a seamless experience, but they're kind of working in both applications without knowing it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a common pattern.
All right, excellent. I can keep going here. The other thing I've read about recently is the change data capture and something like app flow. Is that still pretty new technology, or is that something we should take a look at?
I'd say it's still somewhat new. It's definitely worth taking a look at. We're using it on some projects. There's some different features within it that are more new than other features, and just a matter of experimenting with those before you roll them out into production, see how well they work. But yeah, that is something that's been out, and we have been using it, so it's definitely worth looking at.
I think that's good for now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Some other considerations before you go and implement your system are is the data that's contained within your platform, is that also valuable data to your customers to use in their Salesforce org as well? If you made that data actionable in their Salesforce org, would that attract more customers to your product? So what I'm trying to get at there is you might want to consider when building your integration, not only for your internal use, but you may want to consider spending the effort to make sure that you can maybe build an app exchange package down the road. So customers that have Salesforce of their own, they can install that package, and then maybe you can make the data within your Salesforce org actionable in their Salesforce org, so they can do what they need on their end with your platform. That's something that we commonly see from a lot of our customers we're integrating with. We're installing an app exchange package. We're doing data enrichment in their org from that package. And a lot of times that might mean like building out like a mapping process as well within the package, so you can map your data to their data in Salesforce. And then they can sync that up on a fairly regular basis and make that usable. And a lot of times that you might want to consider that, because that might mean maybe a whole new customer base. And that could also mean more marketing opportunities, because you have your packages now out there in the App Exchange, one of the bigger stores out there right now, especially in Salesforce. So just some other food for thought.
All right, I want to give everyone on the call some chance to submit a question if you haven't already. I believe there are a couple more questions that people submitted when registering, but anyone on the call, like Corey or Mike or Azreen, we'd love to answer your questions and get to anything that you might have on top of mind. So feel free to submit them again. But Jason, sorry to interrupt. You may continue.
No problem. One question that was submitted before this was about Visualforce pages. Is it worth working with those? And the basic answer is, unless you're doing something like with just email, sending out email, a Visualforce email form, it's probably not worth spending too much time on Visualforce. Lightning is definitely the way to go. And now there's also there's Lightning Aura, which was kind of like what was the first generation of Lightning, and now the next generation is Lightning Web Components. It sounds similar, but behind the scenes they're completely different. So if you're looking to learn one or another, I'd say right now probably spend the time learning Lightning Web Components would be the best way to go.
A question just came in through the chat. The person didn't want to ask it live, but what are some recent examples you worked on that have helped customer success reduce churn and increase upsell opportunities? And then a follow-up question, what did they have to bring in to Salesforce?
Looking for the question again.
Oh, it's in the Q&A.
It's in the Q&A.
I'll just read it again. What are some, yeah, okay, you got it.
No, go ahead and read it again. I can't
Okay.
find it.
Okay, what are some recent examples you've worked on that have helped customer success reduce churn and increase upsell opportunities?
A lot of the projects that help reduce churn are going to be like your support cases and customer self-service, where they can log into a portal, submit a case, and work with it there. And then as far as self-service, a lot of it's been managing their own users or ordering products or requesting different users being added to a system. Those are typically the ones I think help reduce the most because it allows them to interact on their terms and when they need to instead of having to call up or send an email or something. What was the second part of that one again?
What did they have to bring into Salesforce?
A lot of times bringing the Salesforce, it's mostly going to be like the users that's in your platform so they can see and view the list of users and control who has access, who doesn't. Sometimes it's going to be invoicing information as well. They want to see like when the last invoice was, what's the current status of it. That's a very common one.
All right, anyone else has questions, please submit them again. We'd love to, answer what you guys have top of mind. So again, don't feel threatened. It's a safe space for learning, and me and Jason are here to help.
Have you built any integrations that offer proactive churn alerts based on uses of customer success to get involved in the account? A lot of that is some of the Einstein technologies that are out there right now kind of allow you to see trends, and with the reporting you can kind of see trends as well. And from that, you can determine maybe which customers are at risk and be able to reach out to them ahead of time. That's probably the best answer I can give to that at this time. And there might just be some typical trends that you're aware of that you might want to code into Salesforce to watch for it and report on it when it happens.
Looks like Tia asked one in the chat.
How to map out business processes and data definitions, support integrations with Salesforce.
Yeah, Tia, if you wanted to elaborate on that, feel free to provide context or anything around that.
Yeah, I'm just engaged in a project right now to really optimize business processes and look for ways to automate and drive efficiency. And I'm trying to figure out how to start with data mapping and data definitions and trying to get this project off the ground. And I was wondering if you could help with a framework of some sort that you might follow.
I know there are many frameworks out there. I know our business analysts work with those quite often. Unfortunately, I'm not the best person to ask, but I know that a lot of times we use tools such as lucid charts, and to map out a lot of the business processes. And then from that, we can then map to some of the data model within Salesforce, or at least what data that we need to use. Yeah, definitely. If you want to talk about that further, I'm sure we can get someone more appropriate on the call for you to work with that.
Oh, thanks.
We definitely have business analysts that work on that specifically.
Yeah, we'd be happy to, maybe offline I can follow up with you, Tia, and we'd be happy to connect you with another member of our team to talk a bit further.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. So I see some people are just joining us now. Teddy, Fred, feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A box below. We'd love to, answer what's top of mind for everyone on the call. All right, it looks like one just came in. My internal product team does not have the bandwidth to help us update our integration, but marketing, sales, and CS are in agreement that we need our core platform to talk with Salesforce. How do we get the help we need?
Great question. Give us a call. We'll help you. Yeah, that's definitely something. That's the main reason why we're here. Is a lot of, if internal IT teams had the time to do it, we probably wouldn't be doing very much work on our end. But thankfully, that's why we're here. We're able to help you with that. Salesforce is a cloud platform, so we don't need too much help from your IT team, other than to integrate with the data that you need on in your system. And a lot of times we can bring in other tools like ETL or something like that to get access to the data if they don't have time to build the APIs out that we need. So there's a lot of different ways we can help you out as well as help your IT teams, so they can continue on the initiatives that they need to be working on.
I see a couple people on the call who haven't asked any questions yet. Teddy, Mike, feel free to ask away. Again, Jason and myself, we're happy to provide answers or guidance, or really help you with any projects that are you're thinking about starting or in the middle of. And if nobody on the call has questions, there were a lot of questions that were submitted ahead of time that we'd be happy to get to as well.
Actually, I think we've gone through most of the ones.
Here's a fun one that just came in. What's the coolest integration that you've built recently?
Coolest integration. We have one customer that has a lot of digital displays throughout really the world. The big displays you see like in Times Square or at stadiums and such. And we've built some integrations with their back-end processes to manage for support. We definitely have a self-service portal where customers can come in, view the project from its conception to building the panel and installing it on site. And then after it's installed and running, they have the ability to manage the health of that display. And so if anything starts to go wrong, we can proactively intervene before it does happen. So that's one portal that we built, and it allows customers to come, both the customer as well as vendors, to work collaboratively in one environment. It's been a really fun project to work on, and it's one that was completely rebranded. It's branded for the customer. It doesn't use any out-of-the-box templates for that Salesforce provides.
Sounds exciting. It's always good to kind of see the end product.
Yes, and I actually with that project we also built for them a mobile application, a native app that's downloadable through the Apple Store and installs on your phone or tablet. And the vendors a lot of times that are installing the displays, they actually use that to take pictures of the site as they install the display. So every day, the customer as well as our customer, the one that's building the displays, they can see the progress of that project visually every day. And since some of them are actually outdoor displays, they actually can keep track of like what the weather conditions are throughout the day. So if there's delays in it, they can point to, well, it was raining on that day, so we lost progress on it. So some interesting aspects that we never would have considered otherwise. There's a question that came in. As a SaaS company, what is one piece of data that you would recommend that we should absolutely bring into Salesforce from our core platform? A lot of that's going to be, aside from your typical data, I think some of the information you might want to keep track of is just going to be like a user participation. How often do they log in? How often are they submitting, interacting with your product? Are they creating data? Are they just logging in and looking at it? A lot of that statistical information you can bring up into Salesforce, and then through the reporting and dashboards, you can make a lot of that information and start building out patterns of how users use your system. That's some data I think that a lot of our customers are missing right now. Some of the other stuff, obviously, invoices tend to be one of the biggest things that we're bringing in, so that not only can your salespeople see the invoiced information, but also the customers can look it up as well. And another thing that we can also bring in, if your platform does allow for it, is also being able to pay invoices online as well.
And Jason, what kind of considerations do you think a team would make before they decide whether or not an integration is right with them? Is there any pointers you would give to kind of evaluate what's right and what you wouldn't go with, or is it really just case by case?
Well, it absolutely is case by case. I think some of the questions you need to ask yourself would be, how often is this feature going to be used? Who's using it? What percent of your customers would use it? Basically, you're trying to get the biggest bang for your buck, obviously. Also, some of the other considerations is just like how much volume of data do you need to bring in to accomplish whatever task you're doing. Moving data with Salesforce can be kind of challenging when you get up to like millions of records a day. But if you're only talking tens of thousands a day, that's no problem. Or even hundreds of thousands a day is no problem. It's once you get up in the millions, then you need to look at other technologies to accommodate that. And some of that might even be like in Heroku, using like Heroku Connect, which allows you to basically copy portions of your Salesforce data out into a Postgres database and be able to work with it on higher volumes of data there. Any other questions?
Yes, if anyone on the call has specific questions, again, we would love to answer them live. Feel free to pick our brain or Jason's brain more specifically. But yeah, we would love to help out in any projects or upcoming initiatives that you may have. Jason, are there any other considerations that you would advise or best practices that you would recommend, just as kind of a blanket recommendation for integrations?
Probably the biggest thing to advise, I think, would be security of your data. Are you bringing in data that is like personal information or HIPAA related, health of information? If that's coming in, you might want to look at Shield and use encryption and to properly encrypt your data. And if you are in the health market, Salesforce also has like the health platform, or the health cloud now. That I think the org itself is in a specialized data center just for that kind of data. So that's some of the bigger considerations. It's really important these days.
Awesome. And somebody just sent in a question that kind of piggybacks off that. Can you discuss any common mistakes that are made in integrations?
Common mistakes. A lot of times, the data that you're bringing in it's a good question.
Try not to make mistakes.
Yeah,
simple answer.
You don't make mistakes. So. Sometimes one of the bigger mistakes, especially on a project, is a customer might come in and think that their internal IT staff can do the work for them, but Salesforce doesn't. While it's Java-like syntax, it still has a lot of other ancillary issues you have to worry about, governor limits, and that's not common for a lot of developers to work with. And because of that, there's different kinds of patterns and stuff that you should follow. And Salesforce has made a wealth of information on these patterns available on their website, and you can go and look those up. But those are probably the biggest things, that people just don't follow those patterns. They're not experienced Salesforce developers, and they get themselves into trouble. That's probably the biggest one. Another question. My company plans on doubling our user count next year. We have a simple integration from Salesforce right now that auto creates account contract details in our core platform. What are some other features you would suggest that we should consider to automate this process? I know that auto creates accounts contacts details in our current platform. Give me a moment to think about that one. Oh, in our core platform. Okay. A lot of that's going to be is if there's updates to your data after it's been created, are you syncing that back in with Salesforce or to your platform? That's probably going to be the biggest issue, I think, is making sure that data stays synced after the initial creation. And to do that, that might be like maybe an ETL tool using maybe like an MDM or master data model or management process to keep that in sync.
All right. So I do want to give everyone on the call, one last opportunity to ask any questions. And if not, then we can start wrapping up. I do want to give you guys a little bit of time back in your day. I'm sure there's a lot going on this Thursday afternoon. But yes, any folks on the call have one last question, we'd be happy to address it. All right. Well, I want to again thank you all for joining us on this Thursday. If you would like to join us for some additional presentations, we do have a number of ways that you can take part in some of our upcoming events. The first being Dashboard Dojo, which is a new series that our CEO, David Carnes, will be holding, talking about Salesforce reports and dashboards. It's one of those fun with filters, so it'll be a great way to kind of learn about how you can expand your own reporting in your own Salesforce instance. We also have another AMA coming up in October on the 14th. This one will focus on key SaaS KPIs that every SaaS company should take part in. And sorry, we also have a Salesforce Admin Essentials class, which is a 5-day crash course on Salesforce Essentials, taught by, again, David Carnes, our CEO. And he will also be teaching a workshop on Salesforce reports and dashboards. That will really drill into reporting and how you can really get to the data that your organization needs. So again, I would like to thank everyone for joining us. And if you do have further questions, we will be happy to get in touch moving forward. And I do hope you join us for some of the upcoming events as well. So thank you, Jason. Again, I'm glad we were able to get to so many questions, and we hope to see all of you at some of our upcoming events as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.